Welcome to another episode of Spilling the Tea. This is a safe space where we keep it hot and real and talk about topics that are sometimes difficult to discuss and even harder to talk about. I'm Anna P. Santos. I'm Rappler's sex and gender columnist, and I'm a cisgender woman whose preferred pronouns are she and her. Later, we'll find out why the issue of pronouns and this cisgender, cis-male is something that we're going to talk about today and why it's important, why it's relevant to this discussion. Kasi today, we're going to be talking about gender and sexuality. Joining me is my favorite fun and fun-loving youth feminist, Hershey Neri. Hi, Hershey!
Hi, Miss Anna! Grabe tayo na naman! I love it!
I love it! Diba? Kasi laging sa mga ganitong issues like gender and sexuality, I think you're really the perfect person to talk to give us an insight on what young people think and feel when it comes to gender and sexuality. And not just that, how they want these issues to be discussed. Di ba yun yung importante?
Yes, and I'm super excited kasi grabe naman yung mga panelists natin tonight. Sobrang, ifina-follow ko talaga yung stories nila and sobrang nakaka-inspire. Kaya nakaka-excite na ipakilala sa ating mga viewers. Pero yun nga, like Miss Anna said, di ba, we're going to talk about gender, we're going to talk about ano ba yung spectrum, ano ba yung SOGI. So before anything else, I want to say I am a cisgender woman and my pronunciations. My pronouns are her and she. Kaya nga po ako si Hershey.
Ay, ang ganda! She for her, she. Ang cop. Avail na avail. Pero Hershey, bakit ba kailangan natin pag-usapan pa ang gender and sexuality? Lagi kong naririnig na super LGBT-friendly ng Philippines. Why do we need to discuss things like gender spectrum or yung SOGI? Ano ba yung SOGI na yan? You know, I think...
Okay. Yes po. Yes.
I think what's really interesting to start off this discussion is ano nga ba yung gender spectrum natin? Kasi ang pwede natin pag-usapan yung gender-bred person. Okay, para maintindihan natin tong issues of gender identity, gender expression, and sex. So tulad nito, Hershey, ang cute nitong gingerbread person. Siguro naalala mo pa to when we were kids. Hindi naman, I know we grew up in different eras, Hershey, pero siguro naman, you also know the gingerbread cookie. Using that, pwede natin larawan yung issues of gender and sexuality. Eto, umpisahan natin dito sa sex. Diba? Nakikita mo si gingerbread person may naka-highlight dun sa area ng kanyang private parts. At yun ang sex. Ito yung sinasabi natin na these are the physical traits that you are born with. Sometimes, we also hear this being referred to as sex at birth. Okay. Akyat naman tayo ng konti dito sa heart. Yes, Hershey. She for her, she, yes.
Uso ngayon yung mga gender reveal parties. Dapat pala sex reveal parties. Hindi
True.
gender.
True. Totoo din yan. Kasi yung sex nga, ayun yung sex mo at birth. While gender may be what you identify as in terms of expression and identity. Ano yung gender identity naman? Akyat tayo kay gingerbread person ulit. So, meron siyang nakikita mo na may arrow dito sa kanyang head. So, it says identity. That's how in your head you experience or define your gender. So, ang ano nito ay yung personality traits, diba? Yung likes mo, dislikes, yung roles, ganyan. Tapos, meron naman dito, importante sa ating lahat, diba, Hershey? Yung heart. Yung attraction. This is how you find yourself feeling drawn or attracted to another person in sexual or romantic ways. Ayan. Kung sino ang napupusuan mo. her, she, maybe I can, at saka spectrum nga yan. So, I can like or be attracted to a man, a woman, a trans woman, and maybe all at the same time. Ganun, di ba? Very complex ang puso.
Yes, yes. And sabi nga, di ba, gender is fluid.
Yun, gender is fluid. Kaya minsan, this is who you feel attracted to. Other times, you may feel attracted to a man. Sometimes, you may feel attracted to a woman. Bago natin iwanan si gingerbread person, one last. So, you'll see in that diagram, yung expression, it encompasses the whole body of the gingerbread person. Kasi expression is how you present yourself, and your gender through your actions, how you dress, and your demeanor. So, for example, my gender expression is I'm cis female or cis woman. So, I present myself as feminine. That's why I wear lipstick. I wear feminine clothes. Yun naman ang aking gender expression.
I love it. At saka, yun nga, walang cookie cutter, di ba? Meron po, parang meron pong mga trans women who were still attracted to, to women. Like yung, di ba yung celebrity couple? Si yung race car driver.
Oh, si Angie. Angie King, yes. And Joey Mead King.
Yes, kaya po ako super dun sila po yung nag-open ng eyes sa akin nung 'di ba a few years ago yun na okay, gender really is fluid. Kaya dun po yung start na ano ba yung SOGI? Ano ba yung difference ng sexual orientation, sa gender identity at sa expression? Nakakatuwa po dahil 'di ba meron po tayong platforms like this show where we get to learn all these different things.
Yes,
Pero
because sorry.
tanong ko lang po, no, bakit po gingerbread person, hindi genderbread person?
Oh my God, it is genderbread person.
Genderbread person ba? Ay, hindi nag-joke lang po eh.
But, oh my gosh.
Sige. Dapat, pero yun pala talaga yung tawag.
Yun talaga yung tawag. Totoo, yun pala ang tawag. Kasi nga, I'm from another era. Hershey, she for Hershey. Na talagang gingerbread ito dati na naging genderbread.
Ako naman po, ngayon ko lang siya nalaman from you. So sabi ko, gingerbread person, ba't hindi genderbread person? Pero totoo palang name yon. Okay. I love it. Ito pa learnings.
And meron din naman ako natututunan from you din. Kunwari, magbasa ng walang typo. Siguro kailangan ko na talaga magbasa na may salame. Lagi.
I love it. Okay.
Pero Hershey, kasi nga, sabi mo, very important din itong sinasabi nating sogi. Lahat tayo may sogi pala. Hindi lang ito pang sinasabi natin friends who are part of the LGBT community. We all actually have a sogi because we all express our gender, right? We all have a certain way of expressing our gender. Tamang-tama ito dito sa mga topics na ina-advance ng friends natin na She Decides. This is a youth organization that is for youth by youth. Diba, Hershey?
Yes, correct. And nakakatuwa nga po dahil because this is youth-driven, makikita natin na marami po tayong very youthful panelists tonight. Kaya diba hindi po tayo yung tipong sinasabing youth pero hindi naman pala youth.
Ang dami kong pwedeng sabihin doon sa comment na yun. Pero sasabihin ko na lang na I'm happy to be part of this youth panel. Thank you for including me in this youth panel. Hershey, pakilala na natin yung mga guests natin. Kasi I think na, diba, when we do our Spilling the Tea episodes, we really focus on lived experiences and real stories. This is the best way we can learn about issues. When we hear about lived experiences of people that we can relate to, people who are just like you and me.
Correct. Yun nga sinasabi natin, Miss Anna, di ba? Kasi napakadami na nating mga Zoom seminars na in-attend. Pero what I love about this show is talagang true stories yung pag-uusapan natin at very relatable. Kaya Miss Anna, pakilala na natin ang ating unang panelist.
Go na tayo. Unang-una natin panelist, si Fritzi Rodriguez. Fritzi is a lesbian, a woman who loves women. She's a child rights activist and also a former journalist. Hi, Fritzi!
Hi Anna. I'm happy to be here. Thank
Hi!
you.
And Hershey, alam ko ikaw gusto mong pakilala yung next guest natin kasi lagi mo sinusundan yung vlog niya.
Super favorite vlogger ko to. Fina-follow ko yung mga beauty tutorials niya. Tapos gaming streamer na rin siya. And nakaka-inspire talaga yung mga vlogs niya kasi she really talks about her life as a trans woman. Kaya let's give it up for, concert! Let's give it up for Miss Gigi Esguerra!
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Gigi.
Hi, Miss Anna. Hi, Hershey. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited too, diba? Apart from your story, you'll also share makeup tips with us, right?
Naman. Just
Naman.
put your questions down below. Charot.
And I'm going to introduce na ito naman, friends ko talaga. Ito si Reg tsaka si O'Neil Rosero. So you might have heard about them because during last year's Pride March, they went viral. This was the couple giving out mom and dad hugs during Pride March. Hi, Reg. Hi, O'Neil.
Hi, Anna. So happy to be here. So happy to see you, Anna. And nice to meet you also, Hershey.
Grabe, actually po, nakita ko po yung story ninyo noon. Tapos naiyak nga po ako. Tapos, grabe kayo pala yun. I love it.
Naiyak din ako.
Iyakan tayo mamaya.
Meron pa tayo isang friend, Hershey. Ang ganda, hindi ko makakalimutan ng she for Hershey. That's you to me today. She for Hershey. All right. We have Ginny Villar, who is a veteran feminist and equality advocate. At podcast host din siya. Ako nakikinig ako sa podcast ni Ginny. Ang podcast ni Ginny ay Tita Tibbs.
Ay, cute. Mapakinggan na po yan tonight.
Welcome, Ginny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Hershey. And hello, everybody.
Thank you.
Hershey, wag na natin patagalin. Excited na ako marinig yung mga stories ng mga panelists natin. At alam ko naman na yun talagang gusto natin, yung mga kwento ng mga panelists.
Totoo.
Unahin natin si Fritzi. Fritzi, ikaw, tell us your story.
Okay,
Yung story mo.
Yeah. So it's actually not just one coming out. It's a long journey. Although I'm quite young. I'm in my late 20s now. And looking back, I think I've known I was attracted to girls when I was in elementary, but we didn't have the internet then, or we didn't have a term for it. We were innocent, we were children. So I really realized I was attracted to girls. I was around 19, and I didn't come out to anyone because I wasn't ready. So something you have to remember is coming out. It's at your own pace, at your own will. Don't feel pressured to come out. So when I was 19, I was living in Japan studying, and I came out to just one person via Skype to my closest friend, and I said, "Hey, I fell in love," and it's with a woman. So fast forward, after I came home a year later, I just told a few people, maybe less than 10, because I just wasn't ready to come out that time. And then a few more years later, at around 23, my early 20s, I felt that I've educated myself enough about what it means to be a lesbian, what it means to be part of this community. So I said, I'm ready to come out. I'll come out to my parents. But the problem is, I'm not very communicative. I'm not a very verbally expressive person. We don't talk about our feelings so much in my family. So I said, I'll just write it. And during that time, I was a journalist at Rappler for a few years, and I was covering LGBT rights. So I said, I'll come out through my writing. And I was writing about LGBT youth issues in the Philippines. And I said the story would be even more stronger if I said this story is written by a young lesbian herself, the author, me. So at first I was kind of nervous. Should I really do this? Because if I give this to my editor, everyone will read this. well, not that anyone will care, but maybe my parents. Because I know my parents will read it because I know they stalk me. They read everything I write. I mean, for work, you know. So once it was published, within the same day, maybe after an hour or so, I got a text from my dad. So I didn't open it at first because I was kind of nervous because he's conservative, ganyan. And then I opened it, and it was just 4 letters, not words. LUVU. Love you. Tapos natawa ako. Wow. That's sweet. And then after a few minutes, my mom followed with a private message on Facebook. You know how moms are. It's basically saying the same thing, but in long paragraphs. but so after that, there was a sense of relief, not because I needed their permission or their validation to be who I am, to come out. No, I did not need to tell them. I did not need their validation. But as a young person at that time and until now, it really helped to hear it from my parents that they love me, accept me, and respect me for who I am. So if my parents can do that, then who are the other people not to do the same, you know? So that's my coming out story. And after that, I didn't have to always say that I'm gay. It's just no big deal. It just happens when we're talking. I'm always that friend who is well aware of LGBT rights issues. Yun. And the good person to ask about LGBT pop culture, movies, books, ganyan.
Totoo yan. Kay Fritzi ako nagtatanong ng mga movies about gender kasi it's also a good way to learn about concepts like gender, right? If you watch movies, but binivet ko kay Fritzi kung tama ba yung matututunan ko dito sa movie na ito, will it actually contribute to my knowledge about gender? Alam mo, Hershey, share ko lang. Si Fritzi, lagi kong kinoconsult yan, di lang sa books. Kahit when I talk about, LGBT issues among young people. And ang gift niya sa akin, ang kanyang aha moment sa akin, sabi niya, Ana, basta, no big deal. NBD. Diba, Fritzi?
NBD.
Yun ang guideline niya sa akin. Sabi niya, if someone told you, your friend told you na, I'm straight! Magsasabi ka ba na, wow, congratulations! How did your parents take it? Blah, blah, blah. No, right? No big deal ka lang din. Or, I'm in love with if I were to tell you, Hershey, na in love ako sa isang boy. Hindi ka naman, marami ka ng maraming tanong. So, siguro na lang yung kung saan kami nagkakilala and all of that. Pero wala ka ng mga other questions except being happy for me. No big deal din. So, yun ang turo sa akin ni Fritzi. And it's always served as a great but simple to remember guideline for me in normalizing LGBT issues and even SOGI issues. Kasi di ba may mga friends tayo na mag-share sa atin about LGBT issues or their love lives or who they're attracted to as of the moment. Minsan, spectrum nga ang gender. Kahit ako minsan nahihirapan ako mag-keep up, di ba? Sa dami ng mga acronyms. Pag nalilito na ako, inaalala ko sinabi ni Fritzi, ang acronym lang kailangan ko maalala, NBD, no big deal.
No big deal. Yes, Miss Anna, and I actually agree. Di ba nga last episode 1, we talked about the different kinds of couples. And what I loved about that is we didn't have to say, this is a gay couple, this is a straight couple. No, they're all couples. There's no need to have a division. There's no need to label them. It's love is love is love. You
Correct!
Don't category.
Fritzi, ang ganda ng coming out story mo, di ba? Complete pa yung sa dad mo na LUVU. Yun lang. 4 letters na pero napakahalaga. Tapos kung kulang pa naman yun, may explanation naman si Mami sa longer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Kakaiba din yung coming out story na it was through a published article, di ba? It's a very journalist thing to do. I love it.
At saka kasama silang lahat, di ba? Coming out to everyone talaga.
So next naman, So next naman, yung gusto nating marinig, paano ba yung coming out story ni Miss Gigi Esguerra?
Ayan. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Gigi!
Ayan.
Very fresh.
Excited kami marinig yung coming out story mo.
Oh, well, actually, my coming out story And I believe a lot of trans women can resonate to my personal experience of coming out, because here in our country, more often than not, transgender people come out twice. We initially come out as either a lesbian or a gay person, and then there's going to be a second transitional phase where we're going to come out as trans for majority of trans people, because here in our country, there's such a limited information when it comes to the transgender experience, to a point that a lot of people tend to confuse um, being gay to being transgender, or being lesbian to being a trans man, and all of these things. So I'll start off by saying that for as a child, I knew that I was different. I knew that my feelings were different deep down inside. And just like Fritzi, as a child, we did not truly understand or concretize this kind of feeling that we had inside. But we knew we were different. And as I grew older, and actually, even my parents knew. My parents knew that may iba sa akin, because kinikwento nila sa akin when I was a child. You know those pillowcases, may mga unan, ganyan, tapos lalagyan mo ng punta sa loob. Ang ginagawa ko daw nung bata ko, unconsciously, was pinapasok ko yung paa ko, and then I act like Sirena, parang Jezebel, Marina Realness. Ganon. So nakikita na nanay ko, kasi ako as a child, hindi ko naman iniisip masyado yon. Inspire lang ako. So yung mom ko daw, mag-peek through sa room ko, and then nakikita niya na ako parang, Serena realness. Oo. So yun. So alam na nila, Gigi might be different. Ganyan. And as I grew older, syempre, it became difficult for me to come out, primarily because as you grow older, you tend to be more exposed to all the prejudices towards the LGBT community. And first-hand experience ko sa akin doon was my titos and titas who would often scare me as a child na never to come out as a gay person. Because if I did, may masamang mga mangyayari sa akin, tulad nung isang mga kwento sa akin dati was, if lumabas ka as gay, papaluhurin kita sa asin, ganyan. You know, traditionally, yung panakot sa amin. So, syempre, when you are subjected to all of these prejudices and ideals, you're going to repress that feeling as you grow older. And that became such an issue for me until I was around 18 years old in high school. And we were in an all-boys school. And syempre, you can't avoid having feelings for people, ganyan. And you start to realize na, okay, first, I might just be a gay person. Kasi, alam naman natin, sobrang vague ng concept ng trans womanhood back in, like, as compared to now. Siguro 10 years ago, we know trans people aren't as respected as we are right now. We weren't as visible back then compared to the visibility that we have today. So, syempre, our feeling would go towards that gay experience. Baka gay ako. So, I first came out to my crush. To my crush. Pero hindi naman kami naging kami. Okay lang, mas happy naman ako ngayon. Pero yon, I came out to him first because I trusted him. And then, once I started to come out to one person, and get validated that you are in fact different and you are accepted for being different, that's when you start developing the courage to come out to more people. And I was brave enough to come out to my family when I was hospitalized for an eating disorder that I had. And I knew, this is medyo weird or like twisted to think, but in my mind, I said na if I came out today in my hospital bed, there's no reason for them to abandon me. Kasi nasa hospital bed ako. Like, grabe naman silang tao sila. Kapag itataboy nila ako, nasa hospital bed na ako.
Sumafety ka ng konti.
Oo, so sabi ko, okay, ito na yung perfect time kasi hindi na lang ako itataboy kahit anong mangyari. Because that was a legit fear. That was a valid fear for LGBT people na baka itaboy sila. And for me, that was a fear that I had, even if I knew naman my parents were accepting. And thankfully, when I did come out, their response was, we knew, and we were just waiting for you. Okay, so yay, that's great, that's great. Alam na nila na I was, first of, as a gay person, alam nilang bakla ako. But there was a caveat to that when I first came out. And they told me, okay, tanggapin namin, pero huwag kang magkapahaba ng buhok, huwag kang mag-ibig sa babae, huwag kang ganyan. Basically, they're telling me not to become a transgender person. So, sabi ko at first, okay lang, sige, fine. See, even then, there was such a huge prejudice already na parang ang baba talaga ng tingin sa mga trans people. Primarily, I blame this for all the portrayals that we see in media as to why ganito yung perception towards trans people back then. And then, eventually, when I started to be more educated towards the LGBT community in college, I studied at Ateneo kasi, and a lot of people there are accepting progressive minds. And towards my entire college journey, information to transgenderhood became more accessible to a lot of people. And adding to that were my friends, my community in Ateneo called the Dollhouse, where there's primarily transgender people who helped me. Yes, we had a community there na tulungan talaga kami. A safe space for LGBT people in Ateneo. And doon ko na-realize that through the help of my friends, through a lot of self-reflection, and yun nga, with all the knowledge that I had for being a transgender person, that's when I came to realize and see to myself na, oh my goodness, I think I'm confusing my feelings from being gay to actually being a transgender person. And that's what that was like the feeling I wanted to deny, because I kept on remembering at the back of my mind what my parents told me not to do, which was to transition to a transgender person. So I still had that fear growing up. But of course, I was a lot more, I presented myself more femininely in my safe space in Ateneo. And that's why it's so important for LGBT people to have a safe space, because these people, these groups, are the ones who will further encourage you to live out your truth. And because I was so empowered with a lot of love that was showered towards me because of the community that I had, and being on Twitter, who were a lot of people who were supportive of being a transgender person, I decided to come out to my family by wearing this dress in Japan. It was my first ever dress that I wore in front of them. And of course, syempre, when they saw my dress, they were reluctant at first. Like, there's no denying that they were a little bit disappointed with the reaction. And well, syempre, unfortunate, because we want to be fully accepted regardless kaagad. But they had that disappointed feeling at first. But eventually, dahil nga alam ko sa sarili ko na anak nila ako, and alam na nila sa sarili na anak ako nila, they came to the realization that regardless, mamahalin nila ako. So, after that coming out moment, syempre I felt more relieved to be in front of them. And doon, slowly, mas tinanggap na nila ako for being a transgender person. And when they did that, when they started accepting me, mas naging komportable ako sa kanila until the entire, their acceptance for me was completely solidified when I had my surgery, my breast augmentation surgery, because that's when I knew na my parents truly do accept me for the woman that I am today. They funded all of this, and they wanted me to fully accept my body for myself by doing this, by providing me the surgery. And that to me was validation enough to know that my parents want me to be happy, to be happy as a transgender person. And for me, that was the full circle moment Na parang sa wakas, after all these years of feeling compromised in front of my family, I can finally say that my parents fully accept me for who I am. And
Ang ganda.
it's
ang ganda. And what I'm hearing from both Hershey and Gigi is that it's a process.
Yeah.
definitely is.
Hindi pala siya parang gender reveal coming out party. Minsan hindi ganun na naisip ko when you hear those terms, no? Pero process pala siya.
Yes. Although I wish nga sana, well, in a utopian society, I would definitely want parents to be unconditionally accepting sana. Like, I feel privileged enough to have that kind of response from my family. But if I wanted a better experience, I wouldn't have had to compromise myself and reach that certain point of acceptance towards the end pa. Pero syempre, happy pa din ako na my parents learned to accept me. But of course, it would be better na, alam mo yun, tanggap na lang tayo bigla because there's no reason for, sabi nga ni Fritzi, there's no reason for families not to accept us because this is who we are and you should accept us for whatever we may become.
Tsaka alam mo, yung she for Hershey, yung nagre-resonate talaga sa akin with the stories of Fritzi and Gigi. Parang very important yung meron kang safe space.
Yes.
Where you can talk about your feelings, talk about, parang yung process of coming out is also with themselves, no? Na, I think I want to transition to trans woman, for example, or this is my truth pala that I want to express myself in this manner. Process din pala siya. And sa lahat ng process, you need to talk to someone, right? Process is both a noun and a verb.
Yeah.
Diba?
And Anna, actually, Gigi and we're lucky. Kasi nga, not everyone has a support system. So, you may have heard of this term, chosen families. Kasi Gigi and we have a very supportive family. But unfortunately, especially here in the Philippines, due to lack of information, not all parents are aware of what LGBT is. So, they may be unknowingly hurting their own children. That's why some people, these chosen families, these are friends, these are mentors, these are adults we are not even related by blood, that we find refuge in because they understand us and they care for us. And I think one of our co-panelists later, they're like a chosen family for many young LGBT people, right?
Ang ganda-ganda. Tamang-tama rin yung segue ng chosen families or families. Parang family siya by choice, no, Fritzi? You choose to be part of this family or see this person as a family member. Hershey, itong mga friends natin na papakilala kong chosen families na parang angkop na angkop na sa description ni Fritzi. Si Reg, tsaka si O'Neil. Diba, Hershey, nabasa mo rin yung story nila?
At napakaganda, nakakaiyak. Pero para yung viewers natin maiyak din. Kwento nyo naman. Story behind that. Ready na tissue ko.
Ako din, ready na yung tissue ko. Tingnan niyo ako. So hi. So yun, I always say that we're not LGBT. We're totally cisgender, and I cannot ever claim to understand what the issues are, what LGBT people go through. But we both have many friends and family who are LGBT. So, ang nangyari last year, I saw this thing online that someone did in the States, na mom hugs, and they went to a Pride March somewhere in the US, and they said, you know what, there's so many kids, so many young LGBT who are not close to their families, who cannot live their truth with their families, and they just wanted to be there and give out hugs. And I said, this is such a beautiful thing. I remember I saw that, and I think the first time I saw that, I started crying. I started crying, and I was like, this is such a beautiful thing because I cannot imagine not being able to hug my mom. I cannot imagine not being able to tell my mom, hey, I met this guy. Hey, I have this new job. Hey, I bought this new dress. Alam mo yan, I cannot imagine not being able to tell my mom that. And so I cannot imagine that is the daily reality for so many young people. So sabi ko, I wonder if it would be okay if we went to Pride and did that. And then I actually asked some relatives na LGBT. I said, do you think it would be okay do you think people would mind or people would get upset if we went to Pride and we did this? And then my cousin, she told me, you know what? I think so many people will appreciate it, especially she said personally that she knows a lot of gay men who've been turned away by their fathers for being gay. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And it felt like something we had to do. You know how sometimes there's a thing that you feel like you have to do, even if you don't understand why you have to do it. And that was what it felt like. And then I saw a tweet from Metro Manila Pride, and they actually posted that same story about these moms and dads in the US na giving out hugs at Pride marches. And I asked my husband, I want to do this. Do you want to do this with me? And without a second thought, without hesitation, he said yes. So we had some shirts made, we had some signs made, and we went to march, and we weren't expecting anything. We just wanted to hug people. We just wanted to say, hey, I see your truth. I see you, and I understand that there are so many who do not see you, do not accept you, do not understand, and that's okay. If you need a hug, we are here to hug you. And it was so funny. Ito na, naiyak na ako. Kasi we went, let's start na. We went, it was a rainy day. We put our kid in a stroller. We had our shirts. We went into this Marikina Sports Complex, and there was such a long line. Tapos hindi pa ako prepared. Like, we were standing in like just beyond the registration, just beyond the crowds of people who had just gotten in. And I had my sign, and we were like, okay, where are we going to position ourselves? We were waiting for our friends. And then somebody saw us and said, oh my God, hugs! And then they just came towards us, and I was like, hindi ako prepared. Hindi ako ready. And the moment those arms wrapped around me, I started crying. And they started crying because it felt like such a yearning for acceptance and love and affection. It felt so, I don't want to say desperate, but there was such a need. And I suppose I feel that we felt that because we're parents. You know how we can feel when our son is hurting, when he just needs a hug, when he just needs comfort. And we felt that all day from so many people. So, binihag na ako, naiyak na ako. Naiyak na siya. Tapos, I was like, oh my God, wait, what have I done? We are not prepared. And then some of our friends arrived. We had another friend who also was there to give mom hugs. And so, okay, let's find a spot. Let's park ourselves here and let's just hold our signs. And bahala na, whatever. And then we were just there holding our signs. And then maya, some people would slowly approach us, and they were like they were hesitating. And I cannot imagine what was going on in their minds. Kasi why would they feel such a need for a hug from a complete stranger, diba? And so many of them were hesitating. They were like, hugs. And we were like, yes, come. We had our arms open, and some of them ran towards us. At some point, there would be like an entire barkada hugging us. Nag-aagawan pa sila, nag-uunahan sila. I was like, wait, we have hugs for everyone. and it was so funny. And there was this one girl, I can never forget this one girl. She was one of the first who came and hugged me. She said, pwede mo pa hug? And she said, eto na. She said, I came out today. I just came out, and I was like, oh my God, you're so brave. I told her, you're so brave. You're so, you know what? That's amazing. I'm so happy you're here. You're with your people. You're safe. And it's okay if nobody knows or nobody understands or accepts you're here, and we love you, and we're going to hug you because you look like you need it. and naiyak kami pareho. And that was basically the scenario paulit-ulit throughout the entire day. Some people ran towards us. Some people stood a little distance from us as if waiting for an invitation, and all we had to do was open our arms wide, and they would come running. And what touched me the most was how some of them made a beeline for my husband. Kasi I saw this one. I suppose she was a trans woman. I don't know because I didn't really ask their pronouns. I didn't really ask how they identified before hugging them. But there was this one trans woman. I think she was wearing a pretty dress and she was wearing a little tiara, and she stood a little distance from us for so long, and she kept looking at us as if yearning, as if trying to work up the courage to come closer. And finally, when she came closer, she went straight to O'Neill and she gave him a tight hug and she started crying. And I was like, I cannot imagine the thought process and the feelings that brought her to us. So it was
no
like
words
that.
needed, Reg, no? Parang ang daming emotions, but no words. There was those who ran towards you na, I've been waiting for this. Meron din na, how do I do this? How do I approach myself? Oh my God. Oh, kasama rin nila yung baby nila, Hershey,
Yes, he
nung
was
Pride
with us
March na
also.
yon, na namimigay ng mom and dad hugs. O'Neill, I'm going to ask you, kasi you were giving out dad hugs. And sabi nga ni Reg, pinipilahan ka doon. How did that make you feel? And tell us about your own experience.
Well, like Reg said, it's something we've always talked about. What if you have a friend like this? What if you do? And we both have relatives who are both LGBT. So it's not something new for us. But we've always talked about how do we explain it to our son? How do we tell him what it's all about? Or if he chooses whichever way he goes, we accept him, we respect his decision. And then from there, we also decided, how do other people deal with this? Because we see a lot of people, we hear a lot of stories that LGBT are estranged from their family just because they decide to come out, or even before they come out. Somebody decided, you shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be like that. But they're people. It's not something they control. It's not something they just decide, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's who they are. It's who they were made to be. And then you have to accept them. You have to respect that decision. So I said, I don't want this to happen to my son. I don't want this to happen to his friends or whoever. And I want to go there and show them that they are accepted as part of society. And that if we can give them that acceptance as parents for just for a few minutes, then go, let's do it. In the rain, we had our signs, we had our shirts.
In the rain.
And then what's funny was a lot of the kids, a lot of the young LGBT were afraid to come to me. Because many of them in our society are afraid of their dads. They're afraid to show how they feel to their fathers. Most of the time, they're okay with the mom. The mom is more accepting. The dad is always, no, that's bawal yan. But I wanted to show them that I'm here to help you. If you need a hug, if you need somebody to hold you for a few minutes, that's why I'm here. We did that all day. It was funny kasi yung iba all dressed up with our wings and glitter and dancing. And then when they see me with a sign, they stop and then parang takot sila lumapit. So I tell them, come here closer. I'll give you a hug. You are a person. You are somebody. We love you. You're loved by your friends. You're loved by your family. They just don't know it yet. Whoever you are, whatever you want to be, those are the words you try to express. But it's not just the words. It has to be how they feel when you're hugging them. That's what we wanted them to feel when we were there.
Ang ganda. Yung studio audience natin, Reg, O'Neill, Hershey, nagko-comment na rin. Parang feeling ko naglalabas na rin sila ng tissue. Sabi ni Kenji, thank you for doing that. It means a lot to our community. Tapos may rainbow flag. Meron din nag-comment si Dan, pahag din po.
Halika, come.
Thank you for
Virtual hugs.
Oo. At saka totoo nga na in the Filipino culture, 'di ba? Lalo na dinedepict sa media, yung mga Filipino dads dapat macho, quote unquote strong. But love doesn't hurt anyone. Kaya you did that. Thank you.
Yung pinag-uusapan din natin, yung mga sa iba nating episodes, how we are sometimes conditioned by what we have grown up with, no? Yung mga ganong images of dads being a certain way and automatically hindi ako maintindihan ng dad ko. Parang we're conditioned that way, no? So maganda talaga na there are fathers like O'Neill who come forward to break from that mold, and say that there's another narrative. Not all dads are like that. And even showing the other dads na, hey, there's a way to do this. Marami na rin ako naririnig na kwento na ang dami na rin dads na nagpupuntang Pride. Kasama na ng mga anak nila. Diba talaga, Hershey, meron pa tayo isang panelist. Yes, Reg.
I know, I just wanted to say that one reason then why we went to Pride with our son, because we wanted him to see that there are many ways to be. There are many ways to live and to love, and I hope that one day when he knows what his orientation is, I don't know how he wants to express himself, but sana someday when he discovers his truth, na he's not afraid to tell us and he's not afraid to explore it, because nga we want him to trust us as those other kids trusted us that day.
Yes, thank you so much. At saka ito po, meron pa tayong isang comment from our viewers. Sabi ni Hannah, thank you for sharing your stories. Ayokong umiyak, sayang makeup. But identifying as lesbian has been really hard, but this talk makes me feel so safe.
Oh, ang ganda. It's talaga important yata yung safe space or some kind of place where you can be with people who make you feel safe and where you're not judged.
Yes.
Alam mo, sinong pwedeng sigurong explain pa yan lalo?
Mm-hmm.
Hershey, itong friend natin na si Ginny.
Okay.
Ginny, veteran feminist, equality, gender advocate tong si Ma'am Ginny.
Kita-kit. Alam mo na, no? Ito, ako lang, Ma'am Ginny. So, alam na natin na sa youth panel nito, ako yung gayus. Okay. Siguro
Sorry naman.
Okay lang. Chika lang.
Pero Ginny,
okay. Yes.
Katatanungin kita. We've heard from different spectrums, the children, Fritzi and Gigi, and then also the side of the parents.
Yes.
Pero in your own experience, and the history you've had as advocating for gender equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meron bang familiar? Meron bang nagbago? Meron bang hindi pa nagbabago? Ano na ba?
Let me give you a brief history. I'll try to make it as brief as possible lang for context, ha? Kaso lang alalahanin niya, medyo mahaba yung mga dekada ko na. So, okay. Ano lang, kasi kanina we've been talking about coming out. And people always talk about coming out if you're LGBT. Pero sa case ko, I think I've never been in the closet. I've always been out. Ang problema ko is for people around me to acknowledge who I was. Okay? So halimbawa, nung 3 years old ako, I could remember my grandmother's friends, yung mga ola chika niya, ganon, mga amiga niya, would say, si Jeannie, parang boyish, I already heard those things, but I didn't know what it meant to be boyish, I was just being myself. When I entered school, I had classmates na sinasabi rin nila na yung they didn't want to be friends with me. I dreaded going to school nung elementary ako because I didn't have friends because I went to an all-girls school. Hindi ka dapat sumasama dyan kasi nakakahawa yung tomboy. No, I remember I had a one friend, siguro 3rd, 4th grade, I had one friend. Tapos one day, her mom fetched her kasi usually naka-school bus siya. So her mom fetched her, tapos I was introduced, she took one look at me, and then the next day, my one and only friend didn't want to talk to me anymore. Apparently, nasabihan siya ng mother niya na huwag kang sasama dyan. So, wala. Di ba? Wala ka ng friend. So, pag lunchtime, I would walk to the next building so that no one will see that I had no one to have lunch with. So, ganon. Okay. Tapos, nung high school ako, of course, nung early on, your mother, 4th grade, that was the first time siguro yung talagang coming out to myself because medyo pakialam pakialamera akong reader. So I came across the word lesbian at 4th grade. I was about 9. Tapos I wrote it down. I wrote down my name. Underneath it, I wrote, I'm a lesbian. Without fully comprehending, of course, what it meant. Okay? And what I did with that piece of paper was that we had this parang Art Deco figurine at home. Pinasok ko dun siya sa loob ng figurine. Okay, hindi ko alam kung may nag-figurine pa ngayon, no? But I don't know if you know what it means, pero yun, it's escayola, something. And then every day, I would look at that. I was so fearful that it would break and my mother will find out about my secret. Of course, ang explanation ko dyan, when I got older, was that very sophisticated talaga yung thinking ng mga bata. I was thinking maybe, during that time, I was thinking that if it breaks and my mother sees it, then she'll just have to deal with it. Okay? Pero hindi ko pa alam nun. So, nung matanda na ako, yun yung explanation na naisip ko kung bakit ko ginawa yun. Kasi it was risky. Diba? For me at that time. But, if it's up, what can you do? Okay. Fast forward, nung high school ako, syempre, yung making you invisible. Like, they don't really want to talk to you or they don't want my classmates didn't want to talk about the fact that, I was who I was, I was getting attracted to girls. Ayaw nila. Or even the teachers will not acknowledge that, no, na, there's a lesbian in our midst. Okay, it wasn't mentioned, nothing. Okay, when I was about 23, okay, for a few years na, from that time, maybe starting at late teen, I started going to discos. Okay, na may mga exclusive women's discos, no? Sa Green Hills, disco, not club, not bar, disco talaga. Tug-tug yung mga ilaw na gano'n. So,
nandun yung mga combo, tumutugtog yung mga combo.
Ay, wala. Ano lang yun. Hindi combo yun. Canned music yun, or they have a DJ, Hindi para celebrity DJ time na yun. So, there would be exclusive women's bars because that was the only safe space. So, the sign would be outside the club once a week. 6 digits pa yung telephone number, no? They'd call you and tell you this is where we're going to have the disco next week. And then it would say outside, exclusive women's party. Then doon yun.
Yun na yun.
Yeah. Okay. So, one day, ang aking, nagkaroon ako ng thought while I was seated there, week after week, one particular night, I was looking out at the dance floor and thinking to myself, ito na ba? Is this it? Is there nothing else? Parang what would happen when I get older? Is this what I would do? Just, live for the Saturday nights where I can be with my kind? Ganon. And then, for the next 6 days, ano ka na naman, pretend or what. And I also want to add that after college, despite the fact that I did very well, I couldn't get a job. And one time I got so frustrated because in-experimento ka, I'll send my picture, don't send my picture. So, nag-decide ako na send my picture. Just let my school records speak for themselves, for itself. So, a few times punta ako. Tapos there was one medyo nakakainis na guy who asked me, are you a practicing lesbian? Meron siyang ganong tapang.
Outright? At a job interview, Ginny?
Yes. So, I said,
wow.
Alam ko na I wasn't going to get it from the question. So, I said, actually, I'm not practicing because I'm really good at it. So, tapos, gano'n na lang. Alam ko na, I wasn't going to get it. Might as well, di ba? Okay, so, ayun, nung na-realize ko yung back to the disco, no, I started writing. I said, I can't find any material. Kasi this was like late 80s, early 90s. I couldn't find anything about, being Filipino and being lesbian. So I said, surely if I thought about this, I'm sure there are other people out there who are probably thinking of the same thing. So sabi ko, one day, siguro I was led to it. I was opening a magazine and then I saw this very small article about a women's bookshop very close to St. Scholastica and La Salle sa May Estrada called Wika. And then they were looking for women who were interested to write. No? So maybe, I can find somewhere and maybe publish. If people don't want to write their stories, maybe I can just write, my story, and maybe other people would. And from there, I found other people, other lesbians in the feminist movement who asked me, come on, join. Initially it was a support group. And then that's when I realized I discovered feminism. I suppose I had been an organic feminist as a young person, but getting myself in a circle provided me with the language and the organization of how to think about it, how things were systemic, why we were, ito pala yung homophobia, ito pala yung patriarchy. And then I began to realize it and started off with my work in LGBT, particularly lesbian activism. That's my long story.
About this. Jenny, you talk a lot about this on Tita Tibbs, di ba?
Yes.
Kasi, Hershey, nakikinig ako sa Tita Tibbs na podcast. Oo, may nag-share sila relationship tips, di ba?
Yeah.
Yung huli kong pinakinggan, Jenny, pag bumabalik daw ang ex-girlfriend, ano ang gagawin?
Oh, yeah.
Tapos kino-compare ko, sabi ko, ay, pareho lang naman. Kung ex-boyfriend din pala yung bumabalik, meron ka ding standard, natatanggapin ko ba siya or hindi?
Yeah.
Gano ba ako ka-lonely tonight? May mga ganun din. That's how I was feeling, Jen, when I was listening.
Yeah. Okay, kasi last year, 2019, my friend and I, Libay Cantor, and I talked. Kasi prior to that, going back about mga 2012, 2015, we were already feeling our age talaga and thinking about the fact na parang how come it's so difficult to meet other lesbians? Parang ang tawag namin doon, kinain ka na ng sistema. Kasi this is something that people forget. You see all these lesbian images, young lesbians, nothing wrong with that. That's great. It's great that you are able to put yourself out there, show your partner, talk about it. Pero people forget that you don't lose your lesbianism as you get older. So there were no spaces for us. If you go to a club, you're out of place. Okay? So kape-kape na lang, di ba? But still, you cannot find. You're still parang stuck with that small group of yours. And ang late ng gym pool, no? So we want to meet other people. It's still the same problem. Ang hirap din kahit na halimbawa sabihin mo, go to an online dating app. Di ba? Parang, you're 50, you're 48, okay, lalo na if you're in your mid or, you're approaching 60s, doesn't mean they don't want love. Doesn't mean they don't need that space. So, we tried to create a physical space nung time na yon, no? Parang meeting like twice a month called Silver Bells kasi mga bells kami pero silver na ang buhok. Oo. Silver na kasi ang hair namin, marami sa amin, ganon. So, Silver Bells. Tapos, we thought we could reach a bigger audience last year. Sabi ko, come on, Libay, let's do this. And she was of the same thinking kasi kami rin naman yung magkasama. We were organizing some of these events. Let's come up with a podcast to talk about our issues and create that virtual space. So I'm very happy to say that we are now on our second season and ang ganda ng response. And the great thing also is that ang malaking demographic rin ng listeners namin actually are the tita tawag namin sa kanila. Yung mga bata pa. Yung mga pre-titas.
Pre-tita!
Pre-tita. So, hindi pa sila talaga tita di ba? Pero, yun nga, I suppose the issues that you talk about, resonate with their own experience. And as like what Fritzi is saying kanina, and I'm so happy to finally meet kahit online lang si Fritzi because I know her work, I'm familiar with her work. Yun yung sinasabi niya, yung mga problema na gano'n, di ba? It's the same thing. And if there's one thing that I would like to tell young people probably is that you have to help out to ensure that whatever it is that you have now, you don't lose. Things we didn't have before, we work together, sama-sama tayo intergenerational. But don't think that just because you have it now, that you'll always have it forever. You have to hold on to it and make sure that you don't lose it. The spaces, the voices that you're able to yung parang here right now, it may not always be there if you don't take care of it.
Kailangan din Ginny, para siyang love. Itong fighting for equality and gender recognition, para siyang love. You have to make it every day.
Yes. Yeah.
Di ba, Hersh? Kailangan, parang love lang. Make it every day. Pero Jin, ako, Hershey and Ginny, ang nag-resonate, yung gusto kong tanungin, you had to find safe spaces, sabi mo, no? Parang
Yes.
you were saying the gene pool is getting smaller and you were still looking for a safe space. Was that because you're growing older as a lesbian or just as a lesbian woman or those two issues coming together?
I think hindi mo naman kasi maihihiwala yun eh. Like, of course, kung ano yung people who have more similar, share more similar things in their lives, like whatever it is, my class, age, gano'n, temperament, ganyan, syempre magsasama yan. Kasi ang problema dun sa older lesbians, parang sometimes you lose touch with your friends because iba yung expectations sa lesbians as women. Like, you're seen as the aging, older woman in your family. So, yan si tita, maraming pera, magpaaral ng pamangkin. Ayan si tita, wala ka namang pamilya even if you have a girlfriend. For example, for like God knows how many years. Sabihin sa'yo, ikaw mag-alaga ng nanay mo o ng tatay mo kasi ikaw yung walang pamilya. Diba? So, as kasama yung layer, hindi mo aalis yung the fact that how you are seen as a woman and as a lesbian in our society. So,
natatawa si Fritzi. Tawang-tawa si Fritzi sa kwento mo or react niya. Na-avail siya.
Yeah, kailangan kasi yung spaces na yun because, you want to, meet other people. And how do you meet them? Hindi ka na mapupunta sa disco dahil hindi ka na pwede magsuot nung nakalabas yung tiyan, di ba? Or okay. Well, pwede naman, no? Who says hindi mo pwedeng gawin?
Pwede naman.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Di ba? Attitude lang yan. But, it's parang if you want to have conversation, halimbawa, 10 o'clock lang, sumasakit na yung ulo mo. Di ba? Gusto mo nang umuwi or something. So, you have to... gano'n. Ingay, hindi ko madinig yung usapan. Gano'n. So, ayan. O kaya yung hindi ka makarecover the next day, magpapupuyat ka. The next 2 days, hindi ka makapagtrabaho kasi sakit ng katawan mo, hindi ka nasanay, gano'n. May hangover ka pa, whatever. So, yeah, it's a function of your age. Yung minsan, boss ka na, di ba? You want to meet other women na medyo discreet. May mga ganong dimensions din na hindi pa rin sila out hanggang ngayon. Or they discovered that they're lesbians at a later age. Posible rin naman kasi yun. Di ba? So, ngayon ko na nalaman, lesbiana ako. So, saan ako pupunta? Wala naman akong barkadang lesbiana. Ang bata ko dahil I was not. It's only now that I'm discovering this or I'm choosing to act on it. So, no friend. Nag-break up kayo ng one and only partner for the last 20 years. Now, where do you go now? Because you don't have friends. So, maraming
Kaya ko siya natanong kasi parang naririnig ko and also, Ginny and I are contemporaries. So I feel you when I say that, when you said that, who are the people in this space and life stage and, that I can look to as to what it's like. Para kang wala kang kumbaga sa role model, no? You don't know what it's like. Iba nga yung existing mold natin or what's predominant as an existing life trajectory na you get married, have kids. It's not for everyone.
Yes.
So, for those of us who don't follow that route, nasan bang ruta? Di ba? Ano ba ruta nito? And you just look for possibilities. Kaya ako natanong din na parang I also feel na there's a space, no, for the more mature experiences when it comes to whatever your social experience is. Tsaka feel ko, Fritz, na nakikita mo, that's how I'm going to grow up. I'm going to grow up like Tita Tibbs.
Yeah, actually, it was like looking into the future. It's like I met my lesbian godmother. Actually, I've heard of Ginny because we have the same circles. I have older Tibbs friends, I call them, who are like titas. Actually, like Gigi and I, we're lucky in this generation. I always say it because we grew up with role models. We have these feminists role models, we have activist role models, and what we're experiencing today, we have this LGBT pride marches. We don't have a national law, but we're fighting for it. We have certain anti-discrimination policies in certain areas. People are more aware now. It's all because of the fruits of their labor. You know, the generations that came before us, the LGBTs who came before us, who sacrificed a lot and fought a lot. And I am heeding to Jeannie's call that they should really, when they pass the torch to us, we should really continue it. And at the same time, we pass it on also to the generations coming next to us. That's why me, as in my work I do with the development sector, I always say that, you know, SOGI is not a bad word. LGBT is not a bad word. Why do you censor it? This is something that should be taught in schools. As early as you're a child, you should learn it. Because SOGI, it's not about boxing people into labels. It's about respecting diversity. And yeah, so yeah, thank you for the show because I met my lesbian godmother.
Ayun pala yung nawawala ko inaanak eh. Sinabi ko na eh.
And also, when Jeannie talked about safe spaces, napaisip ako. Kasi, yeah, I'm part of that demographic na young. I can still go to places like, there are women's nights and places like Nectar, ganyan. And I thought, yeah, when we talk about safe spaces, it should be fully inclusive, no? Like, no matter what age you are, no matter who you are. But also, I found out about that events for the older Tibbs demographic, and I wanted to join because in my heart I'm a grandma. And then my friend said, "You can't because you're under 35." So I was like, "What?" So yeah, I guess we both experienced that. I want that inclusion.
I know.
Alam mo, para tayong merong chosen families within our circle. You know, yung, di ba, Hershey, the viewers didn't see this before, pero nag-share na tayo ng tips with Gigi on makeup, yung parang ating sister, di ba? And then we have our lesbian godmother, goddaughter here with Ginny and Fritzi. And we have our chosen family, mom and dad, with Reg and O'Neill. It's really nice to see how we can establish these safe spaces within ourselves and within our communities, among our friends. Hershey, ang dami na nagko-comment. Bumiputok na yung chat box natin. May mga questions.
Yes, so kanina, di ba, we heard about the coming out story of Fritzi and Gigi na nasa youthful millennial age group. And we also heard about the coming out story of veteran feminist and lesbian advocate Miss Jeannie Villar. So ito, sabi ng ating viewer, I was privileged enough to not come out, but there was always this repression coming from a religious family. My relatives weren't very accepting, but lucky for me, my immediate family never questioned who I was. Sabi lang ng father ko, sayang matupad pangarap ko na maging basketball player ka. In my mind, okay lang po, magjo-jowa na lang ako ng basketball player.
Ay, Nat!
Yeah, no, kanina we were talking about coming out. And I think si Ginny then, she also talked about yesterday kasi nag-meeting din kami before this show. She talked about the word acceptance. So, maybe you can share it with our viewers then today kung ano ba yung masasabi mo sa story ng ating commenter today.
Okay.
Yes, Tita Tibbs, take it away.
Yung kasing pinag-usapan natin kahapon, yung tungkol sa acceptance, no? There's a point in our activism before where we were using the word respect more than acceptance. Kasi yung pag pinipilit mo yung acceptance, parang wala yung onus sa iyo eh. Parang you are now at the parang under the power of whoever it is that, you know, you need to please to be accepted. I think it should start with yung respect for yourself and acknowledging yourself and getting that self-validation rather than getting the validation from others. Kasi when you are confident in yourself and you claim that, what do they have against you? Diba? Yung parang pag hindi ka, lagi kang sinusundot, tomboy ka no, tomboy ka no, tomboy ka no. O kasi sige, oo, tomboy ako. Now, what's next? Diba? Or sinasabi ko, matagal na akong tomboy. I think it's important na it's okay to shoot for respect rather than acceptance. Kasi nga, yun, parang napapako ka dun na hindi ka mapapakali kung hindi ka tatanggapin. Let's accept the fact also that we cannot be accepted by everyone, but we move towards people who will accept us and grow it. Kasi there will always be people na hindi talaga. Parang wag mo na aksayahin yung panahon mo dyan. Okay? Lalo na kung halimbawa, sarado na talaga sila or whatever. So, you want to move to an audience na mas accepting or you're not too sure about it and you talk to them and you grow that audience. Wag mong ipilit. Because at the end of the day, hindi talaga tayo matatanggap, but we can and should expect respect as human beings.
Parang mas malawak nga, Jin, yung respect, no? Parang, you don't have to know someone as in know, right? To respect them. Di ba? Parang, yun na yun as a person.
Right.
Di ba? Parang yung acceptance, meron ka pang, do you know who this person is? Do you know what do you know about?
Parang simpleng parang simpleng pipila ka lang sa linya, di ba? You don't cut in line. Kahit ano pang itsura ng tao doon, you have to respect them because merong linya, we have to follow that. So that we can all, live, coexist peacefully and happily.
Ang ganda
We have time for one more question. I think, Hershey, one more comment. Punta kaya tayo dito sa sinasabi ni Kenji. Nakikita mo ba yung sinabi ni Kenji na I feel like some of us go through a phase where we unconsciously try to be straight and that it was a wrong choice for being how we are. Kaya it's very important po talaga to establish the idea that being an LGBTQIA+, ang haba ng alphabet, person is not a choice, it is simply who we are. Hirsch, pakinggan natin ano masasabi ni Gigi dito. You were talking about this, no? Yung process mo na you had to come out twice. Ano masasabi mo dito sa comment ni Kenji?
I definitely agree with what was mentioned because I think that's just the problem of growing up in a very heteronormative society. Kasi parang if you're in a society which is heteronormative, parang what is considered normal should be the one that should be followed. Otherwise, you'll be alienated, you'll be treated like an outcast if you're not following that said norm. Kaya for us, for LGBT people, our natural response, especially if we're not fully accepting of ourselves, is to lie to ourselves and say na baka straight talaga tayo. Because that's how much we yearn to be to be respected into society in such a way that we force ourselves and lie to ourselves that we might not be LGBT in our hearts. When in reality, dapat, regardless of who you are, regardless of your truth, regardless of your race, gender, sexuality, or whatever, dapat nirespeto ka pa din. And I think that's what we're trying to dismantle right now, to normalize the existence of LGBT people in the world. Kasi the more we start realizing that we exist, the more people will realize na kailangan na dapat respetuhin ang mga LGBT people din. Yun din. Kaya sobrang kasi talaga, sobrang fixated tayo na kapag straight, yun yung tama. Kaya nga, kanina, you mentioned na, may crush ako kapag cisgender person, cisgender woman. Uy, Hershey, meron akong boyfriend. Hindi siya nakakagulat. Kasi it's so normalized. Pero kapag transgender person na in love sa fellow transgender person, parang, ano yan, ang daming response. Na,
parang kailangan FAQ, di ba, Gigi? Parang kailangan maglabas ng frequently asked questions.
Oo, dapat may i-clear up ka pa. Dapat may i-clarify ka pa.
Flowchart pa ata.
Oo, dapat hindi na ganun. Ang ina-aspire for natin is to have the same lived experiences just as cisgender heterosexual people do. Now, there shouldn't be a face to come out anymore. Dapat wala ng apprehensions when living out your truth. Sana walang compromisation whenever you present yourself out there to the world. That's what we need to do. That's the call for everyone.
Yes.
I love it, Hershey. Avail ko yon. Parang maganda yon na to wrap up this session, no? Everything that we've been talking about today. She for Hershey.
Actually, Miss Anna, pwede bang last question na lang? Kasi ito, interested din ako sa answer na to. Meron pa naman tayong 15 minutes. Sabi ng isang commenter dito, I'm attracted to both men and women, but I prefer men. Every time someone asks me what my gender is, I don't know what to say kasi hindi sila naniniwala na I'm attracted to girls then, but I prefer men. Parang sa kanila, straight pa rin ako with girl crushes. So, ano ba yung pwede nating ibigay na tip or word of advice para sa ating commenter? Maybe Fritzi can answer this.
Yeah, as I said earlier in Soji, you own it. Nobody can tell you what your sexual orientation is because nobody can tell you kanino ka ba dapat ma-attract dito. It's you. It's who you're attracted to. And number 2, your gender identity, that's your personal sense of being, of who you are. So, sino pa magsasabi of who you are than yourself, right? So, some people are comfortable with terms and labels because they find comfort in that. So, if someone says they're bisexual, people should accept that or respect that. Like Tita Jeannie said, tita na talaga. The most important thing, as I always say people, is you don't have to come out to everybody. The most important thing is you come out to yourself, you accept yourself. And what I learned in my few years in the movement is sexuality is fluid, yes, but some people are just more fluid than others, which means some people are just less fluid. So you have your own unique experience of your attraction, of who you are, and you don't owe anyone an explanation. If you're attracted to women and men, but right now you said your friends are questioning the factuality of that experience, you don't have to waste your effort going over and over it again. Just let them be, and then let yourself just be.
Yeah. Ang ganda. You don't owe anyone an explanation for yourself, diba? Ganda.
Oo, tama yon. Pero ako may follow-up to the group. When do you, and maybe this is how we can end this session, Hershey, parang, how do you, if you have people who are concerned about you, who will naturally ask questions, para dun sa mga taong yon na well-intentioned, hindi naman nakakaalam. It's not an excuse, It's not an excuse. That's why we're also here today, right? To create better, more meaningful conversations. Hindi lang yung parang because they're concerned about you. How do we ask our LGBT friends? How do we share in their experience? Na we just genuinely want to know. Kamusta, Bes? How is it to be in love na ganito? How do you feel? Without violating that space. And still be respectful and loving and providing a safe space. Paano ba yon? Kasi kung naririnig ko ang tema natin talaga today in gender and sexuality, no matter what stage you're in, whether you're a parent, a child, a tita, a pre-tita, parang napaka-importante kasi ng safe space eh. And I've heard from our panelists how they felt safe. Pero sa lahat din na nanonood, how can we make our LGBT friends feel safe also?
Yes.
Diba? Gigi, ikaw, paano natin umpisahan yon?
I think the best response to this is to just, first of all, try not to be invasive with your questions. Like, for example, you meet someone and then your first action is, sino yung mga gusto mo? O kaya, ano yung mga trip mo? Like, I think the first thing that you need to build is to build that sense of trust and community amongst that person you are talking to. Because for us LGBT people, if we want to open up, we will open up. But we don't want it in such a way na parang parang somewhat fetishized masyado yung conversation. Parang digging
Yes.
deeper. It's parang,
Oo.
if yun nga sa mga cisgender heterosexual conversations, if like we know how to not be invasive in those kinds of conversations. I hope that can translate as well when you're interacting with LGBT people as well. And like I said, that's what we aspire for talaga. Let's try not to be too nitpicky with or like yun nga, not to be too invasive with our questions. Na parang, so ano ka ba? Ano ka ba ganyan? Ano ba yung gusto mo? Ano ba yung, or like for example, for transgender people, like pa-surgery ka na ba? Ay, putol na ba yan? Meron ka na ba yan? Nadagdagan na ba yan? Like, iparamdam mo muna, natanggap ka namin, na mahal ka namin, nirespeto ka namin, and then once we start realizing that, it will all flow, and everything you need to know will come there. Dadating at dadating din siya. Paramdam mo lang na minamahal kami, ganon.
And Gigi,
Parang narinig, sorry, go Hershey.
gusto ko yung vlog mo before when you talked about yung backhanded compliments. Yung parang, ay, mas maganda ka pa sa akin. Yung ganon. So, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, lalo na for trans people kasi we face a lot of microaggressions. They call that microaggressions. When you feel like ang bait mo sa isang tao pero yung pala nakakasakit ka na. For example, for a transgender person, you say, ay, ang ganda mo! Mas ganda ka pa sa aking babae or mukha kang tunay na babae. Parang, what am I supposed to feel with that? Parang, ang bastos, parang ganon. So we have to be careful with everything that we say kasi we try to be very, our intentions are clear. We want to be complimenting. We want to respect this person. Pero, in turn, nakakasakit na pala tayo sa mga pinagagawa natin. So, I think another way to be respectful is to put up an initiative to educate yourself. That's why I continue to create vlogs like that because aaminin ko naman, cisgender heterosexual people do not understand fully the transgender experience yet. And that's why I try my best to reach out and educate as much as I can para maiwasan yung mga ganitong problema in future interactions with a transgender person. So sana magkusa na din tayo as allies to educate ourselves on how we can better treat our LGBT brothers and sisters. Kaya natutuwa ako may ganitong panel kasi talaga nakakatulong talaga to for a lot of people out there who want to properly respect the LGBT community.
I love it.
Okay, I love it. So, educating ourselves about our own sogi, also about our LGBT friends. Tsaka maganda rin yung boundaries, sinasabi ni Gigi. We have to recognize na, questions can be too aggressive, can be too intrusive, kahit na well-meaning. So we also have to respect each other's boundaries. Tsaka, wag daw na fetishize. Parang, when Gigi was listing the questions that she's often asked, parang I couldn't help but think na they're all about her body. They're so focused on her body, not her as a person.
Oh.
So,
And you wouldn't ask that
dapat,
diba? You wouldn't ask that to a cisgender person. So why
exactly.
ask? Right?
Yeah, so
Punta tayo naman kay Reg tsaka kay O'Neill. Okay, you have set the example in this panel as to how to be allies, yung as chosen families, di ba? Giving out mom and dad hugs. Maybe we can also tell the others who are listening here, especially the parents, who may stumble into this conversation among the youth. How can we be better allies, better parents, better safe spaces for our children and our young people?
For those parents that met with us. It's funny because after what happened last year, there's so many young people who started messaging me. They found me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and they started messaging me. They called me mom, mommy, mama, nanay, and then some of them started messaging me. And then one had an interesting request. She said, "Can you meet my parents?" So I go, "Huh? Hindi naman ako. I'm not. Can you talk to my parents?" And you were like, "We're not veterans in LGBT advocacy like Tita Jeannie, diba? So I don't know what to say to your parents. She said no kasi she said na I think she was a lesbian, diba? She said she was a lesbian and she said na hindi siya naiintindihan ng magulang niya even though they really tried. And sabi ko, I can't promise you anything, but if you think it will help, sige, I mean, all we can do is talk to them and tell them what we think and what we feel. So we met with them. We met with the parents. They were older than us and medyo conservative, medyo religious. And then to their credit, they really wanted to understand and accept. It's just that may resistance pa on their part. And then they were like, kasi di ba ang mga lesbian ganito, ang mga bakla ganito. Hindi naman siya ganun nung bata siya. Bakit siya ganun ngayon? Bakit niya sinasabi yung ganyan? Tapos pinipilit niya magbabakasyon kami, tapos isasama niya yung girlfriend niya. Pang family yun. Tapos we really tried to explain na parang, these notions of gender and sexuality, these genders of what is bakla, tomboy, whatever, these are the notions that you grew up with, but this is not the reality of your daughter. And sabi namin, it's okay if you don't understand completely. I don't understand these things completely either. But what's important is to accept, and what's important is to let her know that you love her even if you don't understand. What is important is to respect her life decisions and not say, sino ba yan? When you're thinking, when you're saying this is a family trip, to her, this girlfriend is the family. Like you are. And sabi ko, and this is, sabi ko na, I remember kasi I was asked also, na parang what is your advice to other parents if their children are, decide to come out to them or to say na I'm this or that, or whatever their orientation is. Sabi ko, a lot of your parents will struggle to understand because these are not terms, these are not languages that they grew up with. Hindi nila naiintindihan yung concepts na to. They don't, ang intindi nila is babae ganito, lalaki ganito. So it's hard for them to wrap around their heads around it. So my advice, what I said is that if you just accept, just love, just respect your child and do your best to understand it. But even if you don't understand, your job is to love your child. Will you love them less if they have, alam mo yun, kung ibang kulay sila, kung iba, alam mo yun, why does it have to be different just because they love someone you did not expect? Yun yung advice ko, diba? All you have to do is love and respect, even if you don't understand. Yun lang po. Iyak na po ako. Cry na ko ulit.
So much.
Oo, Crayola na tayo ulit. Minsan pag tinatanong ako ng parents ng ganyan, kasi mahirap talagang ma-reconcile what they grew up with their children, reality versus, for example, they decide to transition to being trans person. Yung sinasabi ko palagi, you don't have to understand it. Those sogi, maybe that can come later, diba? The meanings of those acronyms. Pero just remember, right, when you and your husband or you and your wife were pregnant, people would ask you, ano gusto mo, boy or girl? Minsan may preference kang sasabihin. Minsan, right? Pero babawiin mo kaagad yun. Sabihin mo, alam mo kasi mas importante na healthy and happy siya. Basta it doesn't matter. So it didn't matter then when you didn't know what you were going to have, what your kid's sex at birth was going to be. So as they grow up, it also shouldn't matter who they love. You love who they love. Respeto lang din.
I agree.
Heart dito kay Red siya kay O'Neil. Fritzi, ikaw naman. How can we be better allies?
So I'll just keep it short because just learn, educate yourself, listen, you enter that conversation without judgments. You leave your misconceptions behind because as you learn, there are many things you will unlearn. Years worth of media misinformation, years worth of stigma. So, and then after you learn, you listen, you respect, and then for me, you just chill. As Gigi said, we're not a fetish story. We're not a scandal. We're not an expose sa tabloid na chismis. So, just treat me as you would treat any other person that you respect. with dignity and respect, and just chill. Life, it's long. Wag na natin complicate ang mga bagay. Just respect each other. Dami nating problema sa Pilipinas. So, yun. And also, my last message to young people or older people who are watching this, coming out is not a prerequisite to enjoying your life. It's up to you. Don't feel pressured. Just because you watch this, I hope your takeaway message won't be, oh, sabi nila Gigi, nila Jeannie, I come out. No, that wasn't what we said. You be yourself, and then whatever you decide, that's your decision. So it's not a race. My timeline is my timeline. Your timeline, you own it. So yeah.
Ang
Wow.
ganda. Ang ganda. Ang dami ko iti-tweet mamaya, Hershey.
Gusto ko yung sinabi ni Fritzi na it's not the race and it's not an obligation to come out, 'di ba? It's your own timeline.
At saka, yung habang nagle-learn pa na tayo, we have to be ready to unlearn also certain things and certain misconceptions or old beliefs that we grew up with. Baka hindi na nga siya angkop sa time na ito. And you
Agree.
young people, Hershey, are leading the way for better understanding sa mga ganyan. Diba, Ginny?
And gusto
Yes
ko
po.
na you have to continue fighting for the space you're having now. Don't think that it won't go away one day. So just continue fighting for it.
Mhm.
So for the LGBT community, for the allies, this is a never-ending fight. Is that the correct term? A never-ending fight. We have to continue to fight for equality, to fight for respect. It's so sad that we have to fight for respect, no? Parang it's something na you teach in preschool, it's something you teach in kindergarten, and yet we still fight for it.
Totoo. Pero ang katulad nga sabi ni Ginny, there are now better spaces because of we kept on fighting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We didn't give up. No, we didn't say that it was enough na may Ginny, disco, may women's only disco,
Oo.
pwede na kami. We said that
Oo.
it wasn't enough.
Oo. Na you just don't live for, once a week. At saka kasi may class dimension din yun eh. No, nung time na yun, it was in the late 80s. Ang babayaran mo, 150. Magkano lang ang sweldo nun? Hindi ka pwedeng pumunta pag hindi bago yung blazer mo. Mga Don Johnson dyan.
Blazer.
Miami Vice.
Blazer
Blazer talaga. Hindi pwedeng pumunta doon nang wala kang Kahit wala kang pera, kahit kailangan mukha kang may pera. But I had friends who did not go to school or did not finish school and all these things. And I knew it was different for them. Okay? So, sa akin, importante rin yun na makita mo. Kasi ang tingin ko, parang parang women's issues yan. Hanggat may isang mga babae na na-apply or hanggat bababa ang tingin sa babae, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or not, you are still susceptible to the same things kung babae ka dahil yan ang tingin sa pangkalahatang babae sa lipunan. Okay, so it's very important, no? I also want to add to that yung sinasabi nga, yung tungkol sa safe spaces. I really like the fact na I think every one of my co-panelists here said yung to check yung privilege basically na will you ask that to a regular person, a heterosexual, not regular, to a heterosexual person, no? That kind of question. Pag you find yourself na meron may contempt na yung, lasa niya, puro patis yung kinakain niyo or something to that, no? Na hindi mo naman tatanungin, no? Sa heterosexual, then you know that you are using that privilege against this person or you feel like mas mataas ang antas mo kaysa sa kanya. So it's good to be aware of that, no? Before you open your mouth. Pero I also want to add a bit of nuancing dun sa pagtatanong din because sometimes people don't know that they are being disrespectful but they really just honestly want to know. Sa akin,
Yes.
pakiramdam mo na rin yun eh. Kasi some people have come to me and asked me, parang kung iisipin mo, parang ang rude. Pero sa totoo lang, pag tinignan mo sila, alam mo na yung pinanggagalingan nila, gusto talaga lang maintindihan eh. And so you answer these people. Pero kung yung lalapit sa yung parang, oh no, ayos ba tayo dyan, mga tomboy? Di ba? Yung, alam mo yung iniinis ka lang eh, di ba? Hindi mo napapatulan yon. Oh. Ano ba? Ano ba talaga? Kailangan lang ba makatikim ng lalaki? Mga ganyan tanong. Siguro dahil lumaki rin ako doon sa generation na walang mga trigger warning, mas mas matibay na siguro yung ano ko doon sa pagtanggap ng mga ganon. And I think it has served me well also. So gusto ko lang dagdagan siguro no one thing na let's also not be too parang mali yung pagsasabi mo ng pronoun. Ay, ganyan. Kasi marami pang taon talaga sa totoo lang, kahit may internet, hindi nila naiintindihan, hindi nila lang. So, hinihingi ko rin siguro sa community natin is we also have to be a little patient. I think someone said that also kanina, to be a little patient. Kasi pag binara mo na kaagad, mawawala yung conversation. You lose an opportunity to be able to tell these people about, what it's like. And then they will, pag nagkaroon kayo ng conversation, that's a time that they will see na, pareho rin pala tayo ng karanasan. And then there will be more common things between us. And then that will also help us become more conscious or more sensitive to each other. Kasi the more things that we share, mas nagkakaroon tayo ng connection. Parang relasyon, di ba? And finally, ang call ko rin siguro sa LGBT is let's do our best not to be accepted, but for our own sake. Diba? If you're a writer, or you're a vlogger, or you're an engineer, or whatever, you're still in school, do your best because tumataas ang market value. Tumataas ang value natin sama-sama pag natutulungan natin. Of course, hindi ko sinasabi na kailangan natin yan para respetuhin ka na meron kang maabot. But it helps each and every one of us as a community. Di ba? Hindi lang isipin natin na, ano yung mga yan parang mabago natin yung pagtingin sa atin na at magkakatulungan din tayo kung may iba. Parang affirmative action na rin. And that also helps us create that space for ourselves. Kaya sa maghintay na ibigay sa atin, let's create that, let's grow that.
Ang ganda ng ending, Hershey. May action step tayong lahat. Now, we can create these safer spaces by engaging also in enriching dialogue. Tama rin naman na tayo kasi on this panel, baka pareho na tayong on the same page when it comes to SOGI. Pero, Hershey, malaki rin pala yung nagagawa ng you engage people who may not know, are on the fence, na, can also create a better understanding of the LGBT experience and the respect for the LGBT experience to love and to live.
Totoo yan. And nakakatuwa din, no? Kasi nakikita natin from the stories of Fritzi, Gigi, and Tita Jenny na the LGBT movement, it's come a long way. And right now, parang there's so much hope. And if we continue to do this, if we continue to educate people, to educate our circles, and to create safe spaces for one another, then one day we can have a Philippines where, coming out shouldn't be a big deal anymore. Where being LGBT is, it's not like, it's something na, sorry, what am I saying? It's not na parang fetishized anymore, as what Gigi mentioned. Kaya thank you so much for sharing your stories, Fritzi, Gigi, and Tita Jenny. And of course, thank you to our parents, to everyone's mom and dad. Thank
Everyone's mom and dad, Reg and O'Neill. Hershey, mag-wrap up na tayo by thanking our friends at She Decides because they're also the ones who are initiating these topics, conversations where everyone can be involved and everyone can also listen for their own better understanding of issues that may be complex and difficult to talk about. Nandito naman tayo, Hershey, para pag-usapan. Tapos minsan din, nalilito. Pero meron tayong mga friends na para i-explain sa atin because we with She Decides, this political movement that is for youth, by youth, they've been rallying for young women and girls to speak up and stand up about these issues so that they can really enjoy living in a world where She decides and she is free to be who she is and who she chooses to love and even who her pronoun is. Yung pronoun na yan, pwedeng mag-iba-iba.
Yes, kaya nga naman guys, follow She Decides kasi it's a youth political movement made by the youth for the youth. And for the past 3 years, She Decides Philippines has been rallying for girls and women across the country to speak up and change the rules so that one day we can have a world where she decides without question. She decides who to love, she decides when to love, and she decides how she's gonna live her life. Kaya please sign the manifesto for a better Philippines, for a better country where we can decide without question, lalong-lalo na for our reproductive health. Kaya go to She Decides on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. They have a link there where you can where you can sign the petition, the manifesto, so that one day we can all decide without question. Thank you so much, She Decides and Rappler, for creating this series. Now we can talk about difficult things. We can talk about the tea. We spill the tea and break down everything and still provide safe spaces. Thank you, Miss Anna, for inviting us.
Thank you, Hershey, for always agreeing to share in this conversation with me. I love the way that we try to break down these issues and discuss it amongst ourselves, diba? And share also with others. Ang sarap palagi ng kwentuhan natin, Hershey. Salamat sa iyo for being here also this afternoon. And to all of our viewers who are listening and watching, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Spilling the Tea, keeping it hot and real, this time on topics about gender and sexuality. Kung may hashtag man tong episode na to, madami. Pero let's start off with spaces, with respect, and also hashtag listening. Listening for enriching one another. Maraming salamat. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Ana P. Santos signing off. Till next time when we spill another pot of tea.